friends, welcome to another Abide Tip. Today's Abide Tip again comes with my interview with Gina on the podcast this past month. And this tip comes straight out of her new book, Everyday Prayers for Joy. I really love this book if you have not picked it up yet. So in her book, Everyday Prayers for Joy, she actually talks about the prayers of lament, which might sound odd when we're talking about joy, but as she explains in her book, Everyday Prayers for Joy, biblical joy is not based on our circumstances. And especially in the last 2 years, since what I call it, the world ended with COVID in March of 2020, then it can be hard to find joy. All of us are walking through harder circumstances or have walked through harder circumstances in the last couple years. That's been true all our lives, but especially in the last 2 years, it seems really concentrated. And so she encourages us to pray these prayers of lament. And there's lots of examples in the Bible there. And when you pray a prayer of lament, it's not just pitching a fit to God. It is lamenting. It's showing God your feelings, your true self. There's an entire book of the Bible called Lamentations, where the prophet, I think it is Jeremiah or Isaiah, drop in the comments and correct me if you know the right one, but where he's writing about the fall of Jerusalem and lamenting over it. Many of the Psalms that David and others wrote are Psalms of lament. Psalm 102 is a good one to look at. But in her book, Gina talks about how there's 3 parts of these Psalms or these prayers of lament. First, prayers of lament ask questions of God. They tell him how we're feeling. They ask questions of him. You'll see even David say, where are you when these things happen? Where are you when the evil are succeeding? Where are you when the orphans and widows and everyone's hurting? Where are you during these wars? It is okay to let God know your true feelings. He already does. It's okay to express them to him. As my mom said growing up, God is big enough to handle your anger. It does not surprise or distress him. He is there with you in it, and he wants you to trust him enough to share your heart with him. Prayers of lament don't end there, though. Prayers of lament also remember. So even as you're coming to God with your questions and pouring out your heart to him, you're remembering what he's done in the past. And you see this a lot in the Psalms of David, where he'll come to God with his questions, but then he remembers what God has done in the past. He'll say, you brought us out of Egypt, you won these wars, you kept these promises. Even in our own lives, we can remember what God has done in the past. I like to call these God stories, and you can find a lot of those on the OverACup Podcast and on the TaraLCole.com website. But these God stories in our own lives and from the lives of others really help us to remember God has been faithful to me. He's been faithful to his promises in the past, and he'll be faithful again. And that's a third part of the prayers of lament. As Gina says, they have a goal. After we're reminded of who God is and what he has done, God gently and lovingly challenges us to cling to the hope that is found in him alone. So our ultimate goal in prayers of lament is to put our hope and our trust in him. So if you're going through a struggle right now and your heart feels really heavy due to circumstances, maybe sickness or a death has happened in your family, or you're going through a tough time in your marriage or with your kids or financially or with a job, there's so many tough times you could be going through right now. I would encourage you to pray one of these prayers of lament. Like I mentioned, Psalm 102 is a good example of that. The entire book of Lamentations is one big prayer of lament. But I would encourage you to pour out your heart to God, to remember what he has done, and to finally set your hope and your trust in him. You all have a great week, and I'll see you back here next time. Bye-bye.